And he goes, $20,000? How much is my part? They said, about 20. And he goes, I haven't got 20. So he goes back to his doctor and says, well, I'm going to do this. Cancels the surgery. His doctor says, if it's a lot less money, will you pay cash? The guy says, well, what's a lot less money? Doc says, well, let's find out. He says, what you need to understand is that these hospitals have a huge rack rate that they publish, so that when they negotiate with all the insurance companies, they can bring that down some, and the insurance companies get it at a lesser cost than that, and then you pay, etc. But the truth of the matter is that if you just go in to some of these hospitals and chop around a little bit, it might be probably what you do. So they did. Doctor got involved with him, said, this is what I'm going to charge. The anesthesiologist said, this is what I'm going to charge. They went and talked to several hospitals, got the best deal, tried his operation. You know what it cost him? Read the article. $3,500. If you want to understand exactly this point, it is third payer systems and now Obamacare that is making the cost of health care soar, just like they make the cost of college soar. So, his point is exactly right. Great article in the Wall Street Journal. I've got it. We're going to be talking about it at my next Tea Party meeting. I'll get out of the way and let's continue.
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Brockney, and I'm a doctor in the area, so I speak from the other side of the fence. And my question to the Congressman is a very simple one based on empiric fact, and that is that how can he justify or allow or let this law go forward when $716 billion have been taken away from the hardworking Medicare population who put this country together, fought wars for it. And in addition to that, the fact is that by the year 2020, the demand from our Medicare population will be increased 20%. So the math is simple. You take a situation of supply and demand. Very briefly, the demand for health care in our seniors goes up astronomically. The funding of our system for our seniors goes down dramatically. The only mathematical end result of that is rationing. So my first question to the Congressman is, how can he allow that? My second question is, it's not only the seniors though. I employ people in my practice. Since the time Obamacare came out as law, the cost for me to insure my staff and my own insurance has gone up 70%. Okay, so let me ask this then. How can the Congressman allow that to happen? Because I'm just one person. There are several people in the community, and he needs to do the math. The last piece of math he needs to do is to figure out if he goes against the over 65s in allowing this law to go through, and the hardworking Americans also, he needs to do the math in his chances of being reelected.
I was subjected to the Canadian single-payer system for 3 years. My entire family's in healthcare. This issue is very personal to me. If we, Benghazi involves 4 dead Americans. Immigration might involve the death of the Republican Party, but Obamacare is about life of us, the citizens. This is really important, and I would be amiss if I didn't share something with you that I learned personally in my own coverage. In 2002, our healthcare premiums became too expensive for my husband and I, so I began to shop around. And as a Christian, I found what was called a healthcare co-op. And because it's not an insurance company, it has been exempted from Obamacare. They do exist. They have taught me as its client to seek fee-for-services. In other words, when I go to get my mammogram, I say I am a fee-for-service patient, If I pay you cash up front, is there a discount involved? I have never been told less than 40 to 50%. This is on everything, set bones, flu shots, you name it. If you leave the insurers out of it, you will get a better deal. So please look up, Google it, healthcare co-ops. Mine's called Samaritan Ministries. There's another one called MediShare. They do exist, they are exempt, so please do yourself a favor.
Do you have a question?
Oh, my comment to the congressman is, if you're afraid of a backlash for the shutdown of Obama, the shutdown and shutdown, then you should be, because it's going to come from us.
Before we get to the next round of questions, we are on a limited time frame tonight, so I would just ask that you would try. We've got a line here, so let's try and get quick. Thank you.
I may be opening up a real big can of worms tonight for myself, but I just want you to know that I'm a registered nurse from Canada. I came here later in life, of course, and you probably have friends from Canada, and they go, oh, we like our health care, and then you'll hear the liberal side go, oh, the Canadians, they get this free health care, isn't it wonderful? You'd be surprised how much in taxes, though, that we're paying. Like, when you see 50% of your paycheck go to that, you won't like that. The other thing that I must tell you is I work for one of the big insurance companies that Ken had up on the screen. And I said to them, you know, they were very happy when Obamacare came out because they were looking at all these numbers of people that didn't have insurance, and they were like, yeah, new customers. And I pointed it out to them several times. I said, there are no big insurance companies in Canada. The other thing was, they actually set up a DC office, and they've helped Obama set up the exchanges here in Texas. It's a very large company, making billions of dollars every year. Why would they throw themselves to the wolves like this? It just floors me that they would do such a stupid thing. And yet they just don't seem to get it. They don't respond to me directly. They they've got a PAC. They set up a PAC, and anybody over a grade level can donate to it. And you can, the money, they say, goes to elect good Democrats and good Republicans. Well, as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as a good Democrat. On a personal note, I'll just say that my daughter was pregnant in Canada, had a very high-risk pregnancy. She got worse care than what a Medicaid patient here gets.
Wow. Thank you, ma'am. Let me address that a little bit, because there is what's going on here, and that is a good question, and I've actually been posed that question before. Well, you know, how can if it's so bad for the insurance companies, why would they be on board for it? Well, you've got to understand a little bit about the mentality of how people and how companies and how they're all set up. We all know people that, like, when they lose their job, they have not a dime in the bank. They have no thought beyond the next paycheck. They live paycheck to paycheck. We know people like that, right? Some of us are. And those are folks that they don't. Their vision goes from 24 hours at a time or a couple of weeks at a time. And that's about it. That's how far they can see into the future. And that's not really that uncommon, unfortunately. Even people who make a lot of money are not really looking that far down the road as far as what their future is, what's going on. Corporate America works generally on about a fiscal quarter timeline. They're looking at those stock returns, and they will, they'll do something that may not be the best decision for the long term if they can get those quarterly earnings reports out. So they're thinking quarter to quarter. Politicians, if they're smart enough to look to the next election, and some of them are not, will look up to the next election, and that's about it. They're looking at most 2 years into the future, or if they're a senator, maybe they're looking 6 years into the future. But that's how far their timeline is. Okay, those are relatively short timelines. The socialist left doesn't think in terms of weeks or months or years. They think in terms of decades and centuries. When you look at all the things that are coming into fruition, Obamacare didn't get thought of 5 years ago. This has been an mission of the progressive left for the entire 20th century. And if you read back to what they set out as their goals at the beginning of the 20th century, universal health care was one of them. Socialized medicine was one of them. And they have that long vision to do that. And I promise you, as between somebody that's thinking 2 years into the future, or somebody that's thinking 3 months into the future, and somebody that's thinking 100 years into the future, there's no question who wins over the long term. So that's that's the way to understand why corporate America will sell the rope to the socialists to hang them. That's exactly, and actually I think that's a quote from Lenin. Said something along those lines. He said, well, what about the capitalists? He said, well, the capitalists will sell me the rope to hang them with. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. The short-term thinking that gets us long-term into a very bad place. Okay, I'm sorry, I took up the time a little bit, but we've got 4 people, and I'm sure we're running out of time, so let's go quick with the questions.
I want to talk about this Obamacare. Mr. Sessions, you have to have courage, you have to have conviction. Stand for the truth, stand your ground, and vote the right way, because if you don't, next election, I promise you, you will be voted out. If you don't believe me, look at what happened to Lieutenant Governor David Juhas when he ran. We as citizens should not be subjected to the abuse that we have taken. Everyone is so stressed, so worried. Their whole life has been turned upside down. People are losing their jobs, losing their insurance. UPS is cutting off from spouses being covered. You hear it all the time. You read about it. Why not do the right thing? Do not fund Obamacare.
I'm often a little bit of a contrarian in the things that I say, and we've talked about this before, Russ, at some of the meetings, and you've been there, Ken, too, about how important it is to frame the issue correctly, and to not allow the enemy, the opposition, to frame the issue. Frankly, I think Congressman Sessions is one of the worst about allowing the other side to frame the issue, and then he spends his time defending the issue the way they frame it. So the point I want to make here tonight is how those of us in this room can be as effective as we possibly can. And Ken, I'm a big supporter of yours, and there's not a single fact that you put up there tonight that I don't agree with. I agree with all of the facts that you put up there. But here's what I disagree with. I disagree with us spending one moment, 1 second, 1 syllable, 1 breath in discussing the issue of defending whether or not it's okay to shut the government down. Because when we're even talking about shutting the government down, we're letting them frame the issue. When anyone tries to talk to me about shutting the government down, I immediately change the subject, not to whether it's going to be harmful or bad to the government, or harmful or bad to the citizens, or harmful or good to Republicans, and how it's going to affect elections, because then I fall into the trap. When they frame the issue, now I'm discussing whether or not that's good. The thing I immediately change the topic to is how bad Obamacare is. And we need to keep 100%, not 90%, not 95, not 98, not 99.9. We need to keep 100% of our effort with us framing the issue. And the issue to frame is Obamacare is the biggest assault on freedom. There are 1,000 other things we can say. We need to keep the issue on Obamacare and how bad it is, and not spend our time letting them back us into a corner to defend shutting down the government, whether it's our fault or the Democrats' fault. The Democrats don't let us do that to them, and we don't need to do it to ourselves as well.
Right.
My name is Eric, and I work for a leading national emergency room physician provider. And real quick, one of our mottos for this fiscal year has been, we have to do more with less. And we've already seen where we're looking at cutting physicians' pay for different facilities. Medicaid expansion is now 33 cents on the dollar. But I want to cut to the chase. Pete Sessions said there's a better way than not to defund Obamacare. I would like to ask the congressman, what is his alternative plan? He gets paid to write laws, and what is his backup plan to fix this healthcare mess we're in?
Good evening, everyone. I know we're in short on time, so I'll be brief. I just wanted to bring up a quick point that in 1939, there was a man who put forth a similar medical program for people who were ill and infirm beyond being able to add to any good of society. He also appointed people of the government to decide whether their life was worth it or not. So I had to ask, why in principle are we even talking and discussing this? It's disgusting. And the program I'm referring to is the T4 eugenics program. And the man I'm referring to is Adolf Hitler. So I'd like to go ahead and ask, who here deserves to have their life and a life worth and everything and every moment that they put into it judged by a committee and panel appointed by the government?
Quickly, in just 30 seconds. What he's talking about is something called Action T4 that involves setting up the death camps that were later used on the Jews and the rest of the innocent victims.
Eugenics made in the USA.
I talk to voters all over the countries and all over, especially Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. I hear every single argument that members of Congress who don't want to fight on this issue are making. I know the rebuttal to all of them. If you're running into a brick wall or a congressman says something that sounds reasonable about why they don't want to fight on defund, get a hold of me. I can tell, I can break it down. And by the way, our goal here is absolutely, like this man said, is not to shut the government down. We want to fund the government. But if congressmen are out there publicly talking about this, we have to know what it is that they're saying so that we can fight back and push back against those myths.
Great. Okay, we are now going to go into the final topic. Always a fun topic to immerse ourselves into, a legal immigration amnesty. Now, the problem with this topic is it's huge, and we could go on forever. So, I've decided we're not going to do that. I've decided that I'm going to break it down into just a couple of things. First, I'm going to break it down into a high-level perspective. What is it really all about? Pete himself has stated publicly on many occasions that the engine currently driving the whole rush to immigration amnesty is not some imperative of the Hispanic community or even current immigration problems. Pete himself has volunteered that the real issue driving this whole thing is Muslims. Muslims. Now, we believe that he's completely correct in this. We believe the president has acted entirely outside the bounds of his constitutional authority when he has decided not to enforce all the immigration laws as a matter of personal preference, and Congress has failed in its duty to check him. His actions and Congress's failure to check him has had two results. The first result is that it's made the immigration problem seem more terribly pressing than it really is, i.e. we got to do something right now. And it has bolstered the idea that the president can act as a monarch, bypassing this Congress and the rule of law at his own will. But where did all these Muslims suddenly come from? If you're confused about our president's Middle East antics, let me offer a thought. I'm not at all convinced that Sherry is here incompetence at all. I think it's being actually really well done. He doesn't appear to be on anyone's side. That's unusual. Normally, you pick a side and you fight for it. That's not what's happening. He is not on the Sunni side. He's nor on the Shiite side. He goes back and forth. He's not consistently on for Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. Instead, he takes whatever action is necessary to create the most conflict, the most inflammation, and the most dreadful conditions. And this creates a huge flood of potential Muslim refugees streaming out of the entire region towards the U.S. in numbers of millions of people, probably lots of millions of people. And unfortunately, this is not just my own analysis, but reportedly is shared by the government of Israel, among others. There is a direct connection between the effort to pry open the door wide in this country and the Arab Spring and our handling of it. Direct connection. Now, in Libya, now